Hey guys, it's Sam and I am launching a bindery. Before you go, when you clicked on the video, you know it's about bindery. So you probably have questions about what this means for me, why I'm doing this, whatever. So for right now, I am just doing a community side of bindery. So they call it Tastemaker. People have mixed opinions about that. They don't like that name, but basically it's another version of a Patreon. But instead of being Patreon with all of Patreon stuff and not really being a model set up for book lovers, it's a book lover specific membership platform, like Patreon, like YouTube members, like I think Instagram has members now. It's having that kind of platform where all of your exclusive content goes and people provide a membership fee in order to get certain tiers of access. For my new bindery, I will just have a one-tiered system. That may change in the future. Let's talk about it. So a lot of you might be familiar with my Patreon content for the last handful of years. I have had a Patreon, it's called the Bibliothecary, and that has been my membership community for many years now, and it's gone through many iterations. It started out just kind of like as a tip jar. When I was sick with cancer, I was like, hey, this is a way to support me if you have liked my content all of these years. Then after I was sick, I was like, I would like to put some exclusive content on here, and so very slowly I kind of built it up. Its peak, I would say, was in like 2020 to 2022-ish, when I was so heavily online, if you guys remember, and so was everyone else because everything had shut down. So I had a lot of different tiers, I had a lot of different exclusive content on there, and then I got to a point where I got very burnt out with that just because times changed, and it was like, oh wait, I'm doing other things now and I'm being social again, and how do I adapt to not just being completely online? Like, that part of my life had changed a bit, so what do I do now? And so I scaled it back, and then in the last year or so, I've kind of added a little more things to it, and I had already planned on expanding it again to have a tiered system in the next year, in 2025. I had a whole thing written up. And then I had submitted an information thing to Bindery because I was like, I'm kind of interested in this. A few friends had done the Bindery system. I knew it could potentially lead to an imprint, which I'll talk about in a second. And so I was like, this seems more aligned with the kinds of communities I want to build, with what I'm interested in, with being connected more to publishing. Like, this works more for me if they eventually open it up to me. And they reached out to me very quickly. They were like, hey, we saw that you submitted something. You seem like a really good fit for this. Let's talk about it. We had a phone call, and I was like, yeah, this seems very aligned with me. Again, I already have some friends that are in the Bindery space, so I've heard a lot of back-end information about how Bindery works, about how like supportive they are, about how good the communication is. You know, we've already had a few books come out from Bindery imprints, so we're able to kind of like see how this is working, even though it's not a perfect system and they're still working out some kinks. You know, they've just started. There are still like a lot of good there in a way that I don't feel as connected to like the Patreon system, because Patreon is for so many different kinds of creators, and this is much more of a book-specific platform. So I was like, okay, I can just do what I was planning on doing for Patreon and switch it over to Bindery. It's kind of the perfect time for this, and it was just sort of like serendipitous that this all happened at once. So as I mentioned, I will just be having a membership community on Bindery. That may eventually lead to an imprint, but isn't right now. We will see. So what am I providing over on there? It's very similar to what my Patreon has been and was in the past, with some additional things. So you get access to an exclusive Discord and different Discord channels depending on the tier that you're in. There is a currently ongoing reading challenge that is happening through the Bibliothecary. So the Bibliothecary is now going to be the Bindery, because that's the name. That's the name I'm going to have forever. So the Bibliothecary reading challenge will happen, and that is a monthly reading challenge where we are building a cozy game character. Think like Stardew Valley, kind of Animal Crossing, like cozy game tropes to create different prompts. There's a whole character sheet that I've created that is happening. It's happening on Patreon, and it's also going to be happening on Bindery. I will talk about, if you already are a part of my Patreon, and what that means, but I'm also posting about that on Patreon specifically if you have any questions about that. Also, a thing that, again, I was already planning to do on Patreon is we are going to be doing on Bindery a year-long, well, maybe not quite a year-long, like most of the year read-along of Psychic Witch by Matt Oren, which is a witchcraft book. So all of my witchcraft content will be moving over to Bindery. There are readathons, read-alongs, things like that. We're doing a book club here. This has so many different exercises that are witchy related, so if you're into my witchy content, that's over there. Although not exclusively witchy content, that's just an extra bonus that you get over there. There will be once a month exclusive book related content, so some kind of bookish video. Right now, already up there is some previous stuff that I had on Patreon, but there's already a exclusive to Bindery video for all of my honorable mention books for 2024. So books that didn't quite make the favorites list, but might if they sit more in my feelings. Kind of my, like, if you consider, I don't think it was 10, but if you consider like my favorites, my top 10, this is like my 20 to 10 list, right? So each month there will be an exclusive video about something bookish. Each month there will be an exclusive post about something witchcraft related. So a review, a read along, a post about something, a ritual, a tarot card reading, whatever, something witchy. There will be posts about those like read-alongs and reading challenges and stuff also. And then there will be one type of like podcasty type post, which I've done a little bit on Patreon in the past, or a written post on something that's currently happening, my current thoughts, whatever. I've been talking a lot about some more like digital minimalism things, so that is probably something that I will talk about a lot more on there. And just my other hobbies in general, I have a lot of things that I do, cozy gaming, coloring, things like that. So a video on something that's not the witchcraft or bookish, or maybe it will be in those categories, but it'll just be like another written post about something more detailed. I also kind of plan on using the Bindery for things that I would have tweeted or put on threads because I'm not on those platforms anymore. So it will be kind of some of that like spontaneous thought type stuff. So at least 4, but probably more exclusive posts per month on Bindery for people that are subscribers. Or in my case, I call them keepers of the lore. If you are in the free tier, you're a seeker of the lore. It's spooky. And the really cool thing about Bindery is that they have a whole model for potentially having imprints for influencers. What does that mean? If you haven't seen anyone else's videos about this, actually, I will link Mari's video on this. She answered a ton of questions about Bindery like 8 months ago, before people really knew what it was and more people were getting into it. So please go watch her video if you have any questions. She kind of goes over a lot of the nitty gritty. I do not yet have an imprint, so I am not going into all the nitty gritty, but what can potentially happen is if the community is like, it's sort of invested. It doesn't matter about size or anything. I actually asked about this. I was like, is there a number people have to hit? And they're like, no, it's kind of just like, hey, is there enough of a community to kind of support an author and an author's book and be like involved in the process? And we can like then have that community be like a part of making this imprint happen. So there's not any kind of like rat race numbers, which I found really refreshing. If it seems like there's enough community investment, then the influencers have a chance to get a publishing imprint. So it would be the bibliothecary books for me if that happened. And then I would be a part of picking books to publish based on like the things that you guys already trust me for. So what I'm thinking here is like sentient forest books, like forest body horror, nature stuff, nature magic, Hades and Persephone, Death and the Maiden, Royals and Guards, those types of romances. The things that you guys already know that I love. Yearning. Bring back Yearning. Like I could be a part of that and picking those books out, and you guys also being a part of that process too. So like books would be submitted to me to like manuscripts and stuff, to like pitches and things. I would go through those, kind of pick ones that I liked, and then also be like, hey guys, out of these like pitches, which ones do you think I should go for? And picking out covers, and you being involved in the process, and me telling you like what's going on with the process, and just being more heavily involved in the publishing process, which I think is really refreshing from like the models we have now, which is just basically like self-published, author kind of on their own, having to do their own thing, do all their own marketing, whatever, and then trad publishing, the big 5 kind of thing, which is just like all of that. And technically the publisher's supposed to do a lot of the marketing for them, but a lot of authors are having to have their own like influencer platforms and things, which is not their job, and takes away from them being able to do what they love, which is the actual writing part, right? If you have somebody that's able to like really advocate for this book because they helped pick out the book and things. So that is not the influencer doing any of the editing. Like I would not be doing any of the editing. I would contribute some like thoughts about those things, but there's actual editors doing all of that. There's an actual publishing house doing all of the big stuff. If you have any questions about this, again, Mari's video answers a lot of these questions, and then the Bindery actual website answers a lot of these questions. We're not even to the imprint point yet. I'm just saying that it's possible. And honestly, for me, this is perfect. You guys have known over the years, people have asked me like, would you ever write a book? And I'm like, I don't want to, but I want certain books to get published, certain kinds of books. And if I could find those, that is perfect. That is perfect for me. If you've appreciated the work I've done for the last like 10 years on different bookish platforms and you want to support this endeavor to potentially do this imprint thing, go ahead and check out my Bindery, which is linked down below. If you just want the exclusive content, the membership platform stuff, membership tier stuff, again, it's just like another Patreon. I'm just moving from Patreon over to Bindery because it's a book-specific platform that also has this potential other opportunity that I think would be really cool. Kind of feels like a next step up potentially in my influencer sort of journey, book influencer, I fucking hate that word, but that's what we call it, that is what it is. And so having this like, okay, now next step, like I wish that it was easier to just like transition into actual publishing, but it's not. There's so many things about actual like big 5 publishing. I've also thought before about like working for a big 5 publisher, but like that is not my journey because of publishing being just an absolute nightmare. So this just seems like the perfect fit for me. So yeah, if you guys are excited about the exclusive content, about anything, the potential for an imprint, whatever, let me know. Leave any questions you have down below. Like I said, there's lots of different places now to answer any questions that you have about this. I know this is a new thing and people have been really skeptical, but now that people have seen that there are books in bookstores, these books are on bookstore shelves. I have been in bookstores and seen all of these books from Bindery out there. And then it's not just a scam. It is its own thing. They're just trying to make like very solid mid-list books. We're not trying to get our next bestseller here. And I love that. You know how I love that. If you're a current Patreon member and you're wondering about everything over there, I will be making a post over there kind of talking about like what's going to happen if you want to transition over to Bindery, if you want to stay with Patreon, what kind of cross-posting will look like for a little bit there, for the content that I currently have available on Patreon, all of that. So anyway, let me know any thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!